Hi, folks, and Health Talk from Marz. It's out of this world, and welcome to another episode. This is a special episode, and I'm going to call it Real Talk from Marz. It's out of this world. And I want to talk about a topic that is near and dear to my heart. So stay tuned. So in my podcasts, I've been talking a lot about nutrition and plant-based diets and how it can optimize your health and longevity. Talked about fasting, reducing calorie consumption, and doing time-restricted feeding. So in today's episode, I would like to talk about the environment and how that also plays a role in your health. So we know that we're exposed to more toxicants today than we've ever been exposed to in the history of humanity. And it's scary to think about the fact that currently we are undergoing a mass extinction, the sixth mass extinction that has occurred on Earth. The last time an extinction rate happened as fast as it's happening now was 66 million years ago with the dinosaurs. So there's a book I will refer you to. It's called The Sixth Extinction by Elizabeth Colbert. And in there she writes all about what's happening to our planet. So when we take a look at what we can do to manage our planet's health, and when I say the planet's health, I really mean like the environment for all the species. 200 species a day become extinct because of activities that humans are doing. So let's go through some of these activities. One, we know that there is a tremendous lack of biodiversity that's happening on our planet. So in 10,000 years ago, there were 200 million metric tons of wild fauna that existed. Today, there's only 40 million metric tons of wild fauna. Humans have gone from 50,000 metric tons to now 400 million metric tons. And the animals to feed these 400 million metric tons is in the neighborhood of 2 billion tons. So that is not a system that's very sustainable. So let's go through some of these aspects of the environment. We mentioned loss of biodiversity. What about cutting down of all the rainforests? Right now, in the Brazilian Amazon, the size of a football field gets cut down every 1 second. That's an astronomical amount of land being lost. And the reason why this is happening is because people want to eat hamburgers and have cheese on their pizza. So in other words, the reason why they're cutting down, 90% of the reason they're cutting down the rainforests is to make room to grow crops such as soy and corn to feed those livestock, and also to make room for grazing. So that is really an unsustainable system. Let's talk about fresh water. So we know that fresh water is a super valuable commodity. Right now, the Ogallala Aquifer that exists in the mid part of the United States is being run dry. In fact, what we know is that there's probably less than 8% left of this aquifer that's taken thousands of years to build up. And the main reason why that we are draining the aquifer is to grow food, specifically for livestock. So that's corn, soy, and canola. So mostly corn and soy. It takes 680 gallons of water to produce 1 quarter-pound hamburger. That's an astronomical amount of fresh water. And that is something that's just not sustainable. So right now there's 8 billion people on the planet Earth, and there's going to be 9 billion over the next 30 to 40 years. And to feed those people, they're all going to require a certain amount of fresh water. And we need to use our fresh water wisely. Obviously, things like golf courses in Phoenix or golf courses in Las Vegas is not a sustainable system. But the water that's used in animal agriculture, far exceeds that of any other way that we're losing this water. Okay, so in the United States, the average person consumes 208 pounds of meat a year. So that is, basically pork and beef. Those are the two main sources of animal foods. So, but cheese also is a big commodity as well. And that is a big source of loss of fresh water. Okay, aside from this, we mentioned biodiversity, we mentioned water. What about toxicants in our environment? I did an episode on glyphosate. We know that glyphosate is used to spray genetically modified crops, specifically corn and soy, to feed livestock. So the vast majority of glyphosate is being used on foods that are going to be used to feed livestock. So that's not great. We know in the United States, 35 million pounds of antibiotics are used every year. Of that 35 million, or 80% of that, 28 million, is being used in animal agriculture, in their feed. And so that antibiotic goes into the groundwater and is going to cause bacteria-resistant organisms. In the larger picture, the more antibiotics that we're using, the greater the possibility that we're going to generate bacteria that they're going to become antibiotic resistant. And that is a serious problem. We're seeing that today. So we need to cut way back on our antibiotic use. And to do that, the number one way would be to go on a more plant-based diet. Okay, what other important things do we see with regards to animal agriculture? So we're going to throw in fishing. So there's a wonderful movie called Seaspiracy, and then another one that just came out called Eating for Tomorrow. In there, they interview a prominent oceanographer. Her name is Sylvia Earle, PhD. And in there, she talks about the fact that we've created these dead zones in the ocean. And we've created these dead zones because, again, getting back to animal agriculture, the nitrogen that these animals give off and the nitrogen we feed them all goes into the water, creates this algae bloom. Also the antibiotics and the glyphosate, as I mentioned, all go into that groundwater and down the river like the Mississippi River. So we know that there are 200 foods that we eat on the planet today on the average. And there's over 200,000 edible foods that we don't eat. That's an amazing amount of food. So part of those foods includes algae and seaweed. And as Sylvia Earle classified all of these different types of algae and seaweed, these are foods that are edible and are also really, really healthy for you. So again, we need to diversify what we're eating and try to get as many different plant foods as possible. So we mentioned the movie documentary Scarcity, Eating for Tomorrow. And I want to mention a shout out to Seaspiracy, which is all about the fish. So currently we are overfishing our oceans, and they did an amazing analysis. People have probably heard of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, about the size of the United States. And so they actually analyzed what was in this Great Pacific Garbage Patch. 90% of what's in there is plastic, microplastics from fishing nets. So fishing nets that are basically have gotten old, and they cut them and they just release them into the ocean, and then they gradually break down over many, many thousands of years. But during that time, these microplastics are getting into our fish. So it's no longer safe to eat fish from the ocean because they've been contaminated so much with these microplastics, amongst other persistent volatile compounds as well. Okay. Other important aspects involving the environment are basically weather patterns. what we know is that global greenhouse gases, methane and carbon dioxide, put into the atmosphere at a rate like we've never seen ever before. Again, the main reason for this is animal agriculture. And people just don't make that connection that the methane gas is 100 times more potent a greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. And the methane gas, the major source, is animal agriculture, especially cows. So to reduce the amount of CO2 and methane gas being put into the atmosphere, the single biggest and most important thing you can do is go on a more plant-based diet. So this is a passion that I share, not only for the individual health, but also the health of our planet. Because now, every year, we see that fires are being, basically taken over very vast plots of land, and these fires are displacing people, and they're also causing a tremendous amount of toxicants to be released into the atmosphere. So heavy metals, mercury, lead, and arsenic, these are all part of the forest fires. And this is happening because the temperature of the earth is gradually going up and up and up. And the main source of this is animal agriculture. So I just want to say that I know I sound like a broken record and I keep talking about this, but it's a really important topic. So I urge all you people out there that are listening to this podcast to not just watch these movie documentaries, but also tell other people about these documentaries and show some passion, because most people, they don't want to hear that 30 million chickens are slaughtered every 24 hours because the male chicks basically get, converted into dog food. They don't lay eggs. So again, that's just tip of the iceberg over there. So what we know is that 70 billion animals get slaughtered for human consumption every year. That does not include fish. So I urge you to see Seaspiracy and Eating for Tomorrow. That will educate you more on the fish industry and what's truly turning out to be major problem. So when we talk about eating more fish and such, we're talking about eating a lot of fish that are farmed. And the farmed fish have a lot of toxicants in them. And that's something that's not good for our health, not good for the planetary health as well. So spread the word, talk about my podcasts, talk about some of these documentaries, and just really, consider your role in the effect that it's having on our environment. So thanks for listening to this episode of Health Talk from Mars, or I should say, not health talk, but real talk from Mars. It's out of this world. You can go to my website, marsnutrition.net, and see further information regarding me and some products that I've devoted towards the environment. So over and out. Thank you for watching.